Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the BNI Southeast Tennessee podcast. My name is Michael Crosa with Chattanooga Podcast Studios, and I'm here with Elaine Zambos, Director of BNI
Michael.
Southeast Tennessee. Hello. We are recording today at Wavelength Space in beautiful downtown Chattanooga, and thanks to Mad Honey Rentals for the beautiful set behind us. Yeah. And if you're listening, you can find out on YouTube exactly what this looks like. So today, speaking of finding out, what are we talking about, Elaine?
We have been on a series to talk about the different leadership positions in BNI. So today we're going to talk about all the different positions. So we're going to start with the president.
All right. This podcast is produced by Chattanooga Podcast Studios, helping businesses and organizations make a deeper connection with their audience through the art of podcasting. An ideal referral for me would be a professional organization with a state or national presence. You can get in touch with me, Michael Crosa, by going to chatpod.com. That's chat with two T's, like Chattanooga, which is linked in the show notes below. All right, Elaine, so continuing our series, let's talk about the president's role.
So I think you might be better suited to speak to that since you are the president of the Happy Hour chapter.
Why, thank you. Indeed, I am. So I guess thinking of it from a definition standpoint, as the president, I lead the meetings, conduct the meetings, help make sure that the other leadership roles have what they need in order to be successful. And then I've actually been kind of surprised at how little involved in a lot of that stuff that the role is intended to be. So like the membership committee and some of those things, especially like the president's not in the membership conversations at all. Yeah.
No.
Which is great.
So when you think about it, everyone's like, oh, I don't want to be the president. But quite honestly, you asked me to be president or you asked me to be quality assurance of the membership committee, I'm taking president every day.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, the president really is the acting CEO, if you will, of the Happy Hour company or your BNI chapter. And that's what you do. You're overseeing the operations of the organization. And so what that means in a BNI world is you're overseeing the meeting. All of the work has been done between the Mondays because our chapter meets on Mondays. So all the work's done between the Mondays and we're just reporting what happened. So as president, you're right. You want to make sure that everyone has their tools. So we want to make sure that the vice president has the reports they need, the membership committee, all the steps. All chapters work differently. We have a 20-point agenda that we follow, and you've made it very easy that it's a PowerPoint presentation. So you can pretty much just go step by step, slide by slide, what needs to happen. The main things for the president is to make sure that they do have that conversation with the membership committee prior to the meeting, because if there's a new member that needs to be inducted,
right,
you need to know that ahead of time. Right. And then to make sure that when we do induct that member, that we have the proper tools for them, their passport, their new member kit, or, all the tools that they need to be successful. And I think the other thing that's important for the president is to create that welcoming environment, because so many times as a BNI member, we think we're going to our meeting. It's not. That meeting is designed for the visitor. So I always like to think of it in terms of football. So right? So if you think about it, the magic of everything that happens to make the Saturday game, or if you're at college football, it's Saturdays. If NFL, it's Sunday. But, what happens on the field that day is the magic, because it's the hard work that happened between the Saturdays, right? Between times, right? It's all the hard work that they did. And so when they get there, they're performing for the crowd.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's what they're doing, is they have to make sure that they provide a good game for the fans, so those fans will want to come back.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing at BNI, is that meeting is for the visitor, that we're creating such an environment that visitor says, oh my gosh, I have to have this. I have to be back.
I'm coming back.
I'm going to be back for more.
Well, it's funny because recently I had this epiphany and talked about it extensively with Heather and Allison, my secretary and VP, that, so meetings are weekly. We want people to be coming back. We want people to be excited. We've got a regular format of content. Mm-hmm. What else do we do that does that? A podcast.
Right.
So as a podcaster, I already have a lot of these skills in place. And so thinking about it like, oh, how can I apply what I know about podcasting to the meetings? And there's some things that are already built in, like the positive quote.
Right.
That's something memorable at the end. One of the things in podcasting, and this is the secret reason that we do the dad jokes at the end of every one of these episodes, is that when the listener gets...
Wait, do we want to tell them?
Do we? I'm okay sharing the secret. So, dad jokes are funny. That's secret number one. But secret number two is that by the time people get to the end of the episode, they're excited for it. They're listening all the way through the credits. And then they have something that they can approach you and me about. I don't know about you, but people have now approached me with dad jokes, right? Because they've seen... And so... having something in the meeting that's like a fun little button or, something on the end of the meeting, it's the same thing. It's the same concept. Yeah.
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 And then I'm glad that you spoke to that, because I guess the other thing that the president needs to do is make sure during the meeting we highlight our core values and we highlight the purpose of BNI and pre-assigning who those people are going to be. And in Southeast Tennessee, the best practice is last week's speaker does the core value and this week's speaker does the purpose and overview. So we tried to take all of the surprise elements out of it.
Right.
And so as the president, you show up, you look good, you do the show, you make everyone want to come back.
We'll see you next week.
Right.
Yeah.
And the one thing I do want to add that we haven't talked about is, when I visit different chapters or we're talking about, like, what are some of the challenges? Like, oh, the energy in the room is so low. That's right. So sometimes you hear that. And I always say the energy that the president brings into the room is the energy for the meeting the whole time. So if you've had, you had problems getting out the door, you had a fight with your spouse, the dog took off with something, you got to leave all of that at the door. Because the 30, 40, 50 people in that room, they came there basically to get entertained.
Yeah.
I mean, they're there for the show. So not trying to take anything away from you, Michael, but you might have one of the easiest jobs in the room.
Well, it looks good on the resume.
It does.
So
it does.
Yeah. Well, something else that I got a lot of value out of was having a one-to-one with another chapter president. And I reached out to... Jan Lambert, who's president of one of the other chapters that meets at our same venue, Buckets Downtown, and specifically even just talking about the setup of the room and thinking about how the two chapters did it differently, or just other ways that she approaches it and talks about this thing. I got a lot of value out of that.
Right.
So my encouragement is any chapter presidents that are out there, reach out to other presidents and just talk to them about what they're doing and see what you can learn.
Absolutely. Because again, that is a best practice. The other thing we ask that are not just the president, but the entire leadership team, we do hold monthly leadership team calls so that way, and it's usually 30 to 45 minutes once a month. And that way you get all the latest information that's happening so that you can pass that on to the members. And then monthly you host a chapter success meeting, which you do that directly following the regional leadership team call. Right. It comes right after that. So again, it's that communication piece so that everyone's on the same page and we know what's going on.
Totally. Now, the last thing I want to kind of bring up, because this is a surprise for me, is presidents aren't elected.
No.
Yeah, and I've heard you talk about why, and we talked about it a little bit so far. Can you tell me why?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. So, people are like, well, we didn't vote Michael in to be our president. How's come he's our president? We don't vote for those roles. Again, when we think about our BNI chapter as a company, we have a CEO, a COO, which is the vice president, CFO, which would be the secretary treasurer, and so on. So when there's an opening in a company, so for instance, let's say that, we're here in Chattanooga, and let's say Blue Cross has an opening for their CEO. Do you think that they're going to go to all the employees and say, hey, we're going to have you vote on who gets to be the CEO? We don't get that vote. So we don't do that in BNI either.
Yeah.
Those are appointed positions.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Well, I'm glad that we talked about this. This is good. Yeah, good learning and good useful, hopefully useful
Absolutely.
for other chapter presidents out there. If you haven't heard the rest of our series, we've already gone over the membership committee, all 4 positions within that, vice president. To be honest, I'm not sure what order we're going to publish those in, so that might be a little fun, spicy surprise. We're going to be talking about secretary treasurer next, so hold on tight. All right, everybody. Thanks again so much for listening to the BNI Southeast Tennessee podcast. My name is Michael Crosa, and this is Elaine Zambos, and we're here at Wavelength Space Studios. Special thanks to Mad Honey Rentals for the beautiful set behind us. And Elaine, you know I'm a new dad, and I love dad jokes.
Yes.
Yeah, I hear you got one for me.
I do. Do you know what you call 2 monkeys that share an Amazon account?
No. Why are you laughing, though?
Prime mates.
Hey. Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll see you next week.